Emily had always believed that family came before everything else. She wasn't the loudest person in the room, nor the richest, but she was the one everyone called when life fell apart. When her younger sister, Rachel, struggled to pay for college, Emily worked extra shifts to help cover the tuition. When Rachel became a young mother, Emily spent countless weekends babysitting her children so she could rest. Birthdays, holidays, emergencies, Emily was always there, asking for nothing in return except a little kindness. That was why the silence hurt so much. Rachel had recently gotten engaged to a successful businessman, and the entire family buzzed with excitement. Every phone call revolved around wedding dresses, flower arrangements, luxury venues, and honeymoon destinations. Emily smiled through every conversation, assuming her invitation would arrive soon. After all, she wasn't just Rachel's sister. She had been like a second mother throughout most of Rachel's life. Days turned into weeks. Every relative seemed to know their role in the wedding. Their parents proudly talked about rehearsal dinners. Cousins joked about matching outfits. Even distant relatives were discussing travel plans. Yet Emily's mailbox remained empty. She tried convincing herself that it was simply delayed. Maybe Rachel wanted to hand-deliver it. Maybe there had been a printing mistake. Then one quiet evening, while scrolling through social media, Emily's heart stopped. There was Rachel, laughing with bridesmaids at a glamorous bridal shower. Another photo showed the entire family gathered around a beautifully decorated dinner table. Their parents smiled brightly beside Rachel. Cousins held champagne glasses, celebrating together. Everyone was there, everyone except Emily. Her hands trembled as she continued scrolling. More pictures appeared: cake tastings, dress fittings, family brunches, wedding rehearsals. Every memory was carefully captured. Every picture reminded her of one painful truth. She had already been erased. Unable to bear the uncertainty any longer, Emily picked up her phone and called Rachel. Rachel answered after several rings. "Hey," she said casually. Emily forced a shaky smile, even though Rachel couldn't see it. "I noticed everyone has been celebrating together. I was wondering if maybe my invitation got lost in the mail." There was a long silence. Finally Rachel sighed. "It didn't get lost." Emily felt her stomach tighten. "So, when should I expect it?" "You shouldn't." The words landed like ice. "What do you mean?" Rachel's voice became colder. "You're not invited." Emily couldn't speak. Rachel continued without hesitation. "This wedding is elegant. My fiancé's family is wealthy. They're sophisticated. I don't want anything ruining that image." Emily whispered, "Ruining it? I'm your sister." Rachel laughed softly. "You and David drive that old pickup truck. Your clothes are simple. You don't fit the atmosphere we're creating." Each sentence felt heavier than the last. "I've spent years helping you," Emily said quietly. "Wasn't that enough? I never asked you to expect anything back." The call ended. Emily stared at the blank screen, unable to process what had just happened. Later that evening, she called her parents. Her mother spoke gently, but avoided the subject. "Rachel has her reasons." Her father simply sighed. "We don't want family arguments before the wedding." Those words hurt almost as much as Rachel's rejection. For the first time in her life, Emily realized that silence could betray someone just as deeply as cruel words. That night she cried until sunrise. But when morning finally arrived, something inside her had changed. She wiped away her tears, folded the invisible expectations she'd carried for years, and made herself one quiet promise. She would not beg for a seat at a table where she was never truly welcome. Instead, on Rachel's wedding day, she would visit her favorite little coffee shop, order a warm caramel latte, and spend the day choosing peace over pain. She had no idea that by the end of that day, while she calmly sipped her coffee, her phone would be overflowing with desperate calls from the very people who had decided she didn't belong. The morning of Rachel's wedding arrived with clear blue skies and warm sunshine. It was the kind of day people dreamed of for outdoor ceremonies. But Emily had no intention of watching someone else's dream unfold without her. Instead of dressing up, she slipped into her favorite jeans, a soft cream-colored sweater, and comfortable sneakers. She tied her hair back, grabbed the novel she had been meaning to finish, and drove to the quiet neighborhood cafe, where she often escaped after long work weeks. The familiar smell of freshly brewed coffee wrapped around her like an old friend. She ordered a caramel latte and a warm cinnamon roll before settling into a seat by the window. Outside, people hurried through their busy Saturday mornings. Inside, soft music played as pages turned and coffee cups clinked gently. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt calm. She opened her book and reminded herself that life didn't end because someone failed to value her. She couldn't control Rachel's choices, but she could choose how she responded to them. About 30 minutes later, her phone vibrated on the table. "Mom," Emily looked at the screen for a moment before turning it face down. A few seconds later, it buzzed again. "Dad?" Then another, "Rachel?" She took a slow sip of her coffee and ignored it. The buzzing didn't stop. Her uncle called, then her aunt, 2 cousins, her grandmother. Even relatives she hadn't spoken to in years suddenly wanted her attention. The phone vibrated so often that it almost danced across the wooden table. Emily finally switched it to silent. She wasn't angry anymore, she was simply tired. As she watched steam rise from her coffee, memories she had buried for years began surfacing one after another. She remembered emptying her savings account so Rachel could finish college. She remembered canceling a vacation with her husband, David, because Rachel needed money for rent. She remembered spending countless nights, babysitting Rachel's children, without accepting a single dollar. Every sacrifice had been offered with love. Every favor had been given without expecting repayment. Yet, when Rachel wanted a picture-perfect wedding, Emily had become an embarrassment. Nearly 2 hours passed peacefully. When Emily finally picked up her phone again, she froze. 42 missed calls, 7 voicemails, dozens of text messages. She frowned but resisted opening any of them. Instead, she ordered another coffee and a slice of cheesecake. If she hadn't been important enough to celebrate with, she wasn't going to rush to rescue anyone. By early afternoon, the number had climbed even higher. 63, 81, 94, then 110 missed calls. The screen looked unreal. Emily stared at it for several long seconds before pressing play on the newest voicemail. Her father's shaky voice filled the quiet cafe. "Emily, please answer, we need you. Something has gone terribly wrong. Please, call us back as soon as you hear this." The message ended abruptly. She listened to another voicemail. This time it was Rachel. Her confident voice had disappeared. She was crying. "Emily, please, I know you're upset, but I need you. Please answer your phone. I'm begging you." Emily slowly locked the screen without replying. She looked out the cafe window and watched the world continue as if nothing had happened. Yesterday, she hadn't been worthy of an invitation. Today, she was suddenly the most important person in the family. A small, bittersweet smile crossed her face as she finished the last sip of her coffee. Curiosity finally got the better of her. She picked up her car keys, left enough money on the table to cover the bill and a generous tip, and walked toward the parking lot. She wasn't going to save anyone, but she wanted to see what could possibly cause 110 desperate calls from the same people who had shut her out only hours before. Emily arrived at the grand wedding venue just as the afternoon sun began to fade. Expensive white roses lined the entrance, but the elegant decorations could not hide the chaos unfolding inside. Guests stood in small groups, whispering nervously. Some were leaving with confused expressions, while others watched vendors dismantle flower arrangements and load tables back into trucks. A photographer packed away thousands of dollars worth of equipment without taking a single wedding portrait. This wasn't a celebration, it was a disaster. Emily stepped out of her car and immediately noticed her father rushing toward her. His face was pale. "Emily," he cried, grabbing her hands, "thank goodness you're here." Before she could answer, her mother appeared behind him, tears running down her cheeks. "We've been trying to reach you all morning." Emily looked at both of them calmly. "I noticed." Her father lowered his head in shame. "Please, Rachel needs your help." Emily followed them into the venue. Inside, Rachel sat in a corner wearing her beautiful white wedding gown. Her makeup had been ruined by tears, and the confident bride from social media had completely disappeared. The moment Rachel saw Emily, she jumped to her feet. "You came," she shouted before running over. Emily stopped her with a quiet glance. What happened? Rachel hesitated. Before she could speak, one of the wedding planners walked over holding a thick folder of contracts. "Are you Emily Carter?" the planner asked. "Yes. We've been trying to contact you all day. Several of these contracts list you as the financial guarantor." Emily frowned. "What contracts?" The planner opened the folder. The venue, another page. The catering, another. The floral designer, another. The live band. Each agreement carried Emily's printed name beneath a guarantee clause. Her heart sank. "I never agreed to any of this." Rachel burst into fresh tears. I didn't think it mattered." Emily stared at her. "What did you do?" Rachel couldn't meet her eyes. "Remember those papers I asked you to sign 3 months ago? I told you they were insurance forms in case something happened to me." Emily suddenly remembered. Rachel had rushed her through the documents during a family dinner, insisting they were simple paperwork required by the wedding venue. Without thinking twice, Emily had signed. Rachel had lied. She had hidden legally binding guarantees among ordinary pages. The planner continued carefully. "When the final payments weren't made this morning, we attempted to charge the guarantor listed on every contract. Since we couldn't reach you, all services were suspended." Emily looked around the ballroom. Half the decorations had already been removed. The musicians had gone home. The catering staff was packing untouched meals into containers. Across the room, Rachel's fiancé stood beside his parents with a look of complete disbelief. "I asked you where the money was coming from," he said quietly to Rachel. "You promised everything had been paid." Rachel sobbed harder. "I thought Emily would come. She always fixes everything." Those words echoed through the silent ballroom. She always fixes everything. For years that had been true, every financial crisis, every family emergency, every mistake. Emily had rescued them all. Rachel had been so certain she would once again sacrifice herself that she hadn't even invited the woman expected to save the day. The groom slowly removed his wedding ring from his pocket. "I can't marry someone who builds a future on lies." Without another word, he turned and walked away with his family. Several guests followed. Within minutes, the ballroom was nearly empty. Rachel collapsed into a chair, crying uncontrollably. She looked up at Emily with desperate eyes. "Please," she whispered, "just this once. Save me." Emily stood silently, looking at the sister she had loved for so many years. Then, with a calmness that surprised everyone in the room, she took one slow step forward, ready to give Rachel an answer that would change both of their lives forever. The ballroom had fallen silent. The laughter, music, and excitement that Rachel had dreamed about for months had disappeared, replaced by broken promises and shattered expectations. Rachel looked up at Emily through tear-filled eyes. "Please," she whispered, "if you pay the vendors now, maybe we can still save the wedding. I'll make everything right, I promise." Emily stood quietly for a moment before speaking. "When I called you a week ago, I asked one simple question," she said gently. "I asked when my invitation would arrive." Rachel lowered her head. "You told me I wasn't invited because I didn't fit the image of your perfect wedding." No one in the room dared interrupt. Emily continued, her voice calm but steady. "You said my clothes were too simple. You were embarrassed by my husband's old pickup truck. After everything I had done for you, you decided I was good enough to pay your bills, but not good enough to sit in the front row as your sister." Rachel covered her face and cried harder. "I was wrong," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry." Emily nodded slowly. "I believe you're sorry, but you're sorry because your plan failed, not because you respected me." The words struck everyone harder than shouting ever could. Emily reached into her purse and carefully removed the copies of the contracts the wedding planner had handed her. Without anger, she placed them on a nearby table. "I'll have my attorney review these documents," she said. "If my signature was obtained through deception, the law will decide what happens next." Rachel's shoulders slumped. For the first time, she understood that actions carried consequences. Emily turned toward her parents. "I love both of you," she said softly. "But your silence hurt me almost as much as Rachel's words. When someone you love is treated unfairly, staying quiet doesn't keep the peace. It only protects the person causing the pain." Her mother began to cry. Her father couldn't even meet her eyes. Emily hugged them both before walking toward the exit. No dramatic speech, no yelling, no revenge, just dignity. Over the next several months, the truth spread throughout the family. Everyone learned how Rachel had secretly hidden financial guarantee forms among ordinary paperwork, expecting Emily to rescue her once again. The relatives who had ignored Emily before now apologized sincerely, admitting they should have questioned why she had been excluded. Rachel's fiancé never returned. Trust once broken could not be rebuilt so easily. Meanwhile, Emily chose a different path. Instead of spending her energy on bitterness, she used the money she had carefully saved over the years to open the cozy neighborhood coffee bookstore she had always dreamed about. Every morning, the smell of fresh coffee blended with the scent of new books, filling the little shop with warmth and peace. Customers quickly became friends, and the bookstore became a place where kindness was always welcome. One rainy afternoon, the bell above the front door chimed softly. Rachel stepped inside. She looked nothing like the confident woman from her wedding photos. She looked humbled. "I'm not here to ask for money," she said quietly. "I only wanted to tell you that I finally understand everything I took from you. Not just your help, your trust. I'm truly sorry." Emily smiled gently. "I forgive you." Rachel looked relieved. "But forgiveness," Emily continued, "doesn't erase the past. It simply allows me to move forward without carrying its weight." Rachel nodded, tears filling her eyes once again. As she quietly left the bookstore, Emily returned to her favorite chair by the window. She wrapped both hands around a warm cup of coffee and watched the sunset paint the sky with shades of gold. Her phone rested silently beside her. No desperate calls, no demands, only peace. In the end, Emily discovered that the sweetest revenge was never making someone suffer. It was building a life so full of happiness, purpose, and self-respect that the people who had once underestimated her could only wish they had appreciated her when they had the chance.